to not feel afraid to talk about topics like these as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Becky for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and share as well. So make sure you've got a notepad and you can take lots of notes. We are recording and we will share this tomorrow. Take it away, Beck.
Okay, Rachel, are you recording? Perfect. Well, guys, hey, welcome. I know that a bunch of you are ambassadors, but I also want to acknowledge that I have a feeling there'll be some folks hop on who are either brand new or are not currently. I'm going to mute everyone really quick. Maybe aren't leading a team or working with people yet. So whoever you are and wherever you're here, welcome. We're glad you're here. But I wanted to talk with you guys. Have you ever had someone who, after maybe just a few weeks on the products or a few days or even a month or even 2 months, just begins to say, you know, I'm just not sure that this is working for me? Ever had that happen to you? Someone, they kind of bail sort of quickly. And usually when it happens to me, my heart sinks, because one of the reasons that I think it's happening is because they expected that they would take the products immediately and just feel immediately better, right? Well, the good news for me is that I used to be a licensed professional counselor, and so people would come to counseling. And guys, if you've ever done therapy, did you walk right in, have an amazing session, and then never need to come back again? No. In fact, I would tell my clients, like, hey, especially after their first session, hey, this was a hard session. Like, it's okay if you leave here and you feel really bad. That would be pretty typical and natural. And then I would tell them, going to counseling is like having a huge cauldron of stew, and then you suddenly take a big spoon and you stick it into that cauldron and you start stirring. Well, what's going to happen? All the stuff that's settled to the bottom is going to rise to the top, and that can be like emotionally painful. And it's similar with these natural plant-based supplements. Now, I want to be really clear. It's not our desire that people feel terrible. And so Rachel is going to mention more of that later when we talk about what detox isn't. But it is totally natural, especially for people who are past the age of, 21, to have built up some things in their bodies, to have some issues going on deep down in their core that is going to require time, patience, commitment, and consistency before you see the resolution of these issues. So this is what detox is. It's the same thing. It's taking that big spoon and stirring your pot, and all the stuff at the bottom rises to the top. I mean, just raise your hand if you ever had acne right when you got on the products because like your skin was detoxing. Raise your hand if you ever dealt with digestive issues like diarrhea and constipation, right? Thank you. A couple of y'all are being honest. I want to tell you my detox story, and I'm just going to be totally keep it real. It's 2020. Like, if you're not ready for this, then, I don't know where you've been. But I was excited to get on our products because I actually knew a little bit about probiotics. My sponsor, Andrea Mitchell, had only been on the products for like a month longer than I had. And so she didn't know much, but I took 2 Probio 5 right away. Back then the bottle said take 2. I swear it did. And I took 2, and guys, just going to keep it real. I got in the shower the next morning, and while I was showering, I had a full body, like, what's happening to me? Where it's kind of like that scene from the movie Bridesmaids where she's got the wedding dress on and she's walking out in the street and she's like, it's happening. It's happening. That was me in the shower. I was like, what is going on with my body? And, I am grateful for that horrendous experience. I know I just woke some of y'all up. You were snoozing, and that's what that story was for. I'm grateful for that horrendous detox moment because I literally got out of the shower, and I think I texted Andrea right away and was like, what just happened? And Rachel, you too. Yeah, I think I was like, code brown, something bad just happened. Hey friends, poop is a part of detox, and poop is a part of your gut getting restored back to balance. And so thankfully I knew at that moment, that was my buy-in. Oh, this is something totally different. I've never taken products that triggered detox so quickly. For me, I got excited because I knew that meant that something was working. But I want you to understand, for a lot of people, that's terrifying. And for a lot of your folks, if you don't prepare them, and now there's a fine line in balance, keeping that balance. You want to prepare people for detox, but you do not want to scare them with detox, because then it drives me nuts when I talk to people who are like, well, it's been 3 weeks and I haven't started my products because I was afraid I was going to detox. And then you're like, you're wasting time. Get on the things, start taking them. So that's my detox story. Let's talk a little bit tonight about why we detox. Specifically, I'm going to start with gut health, because there's all kinds of detox that happens in our body, and you really can start detoxing even just taking Slim. But I want to talk to you about the gut and what I think is happening for most of us with our guts right now. We have our gut, the lining of our digestive tract needs to be very thick, and it needs to, sorry, but I'm going to use this word, it needs to be a thick mucus layer, because that's where your body absorbs nutrients, vitamins. It takes whatever it needs from your food and it distributes it to your body right there. But what happens for most of us with leaky gut is that once thick, really mucus lining, it starts to become almost more like a chain link fence. So it gets pockets, it gets holes in it, and it cannot absorb properly. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to, I have a junior hire, not right now, real life. And so when it becomes like a chain link fence, that's actually when you begin to trigger a lot of issues like autoimmune response, because your body cannot distinguish between a foreign invader and your regular food. So with leaky gut, you are highly prone to detox, and that's just natural, and that's got to be okay. But you want to prepare people for that. So detox is really going to signal, hey, this stuff is working. And that's where you've got to help people understand that. So I told you how I always give people the talk about, the big spoon in the cauldron and stirring it around. But now I want to give you actual language around that, because there's something called the Herxheimer reaction, and you don't need to know it. You don't need to memorize it. But for any of you that have studied this, you know that this is specifically applied to what we call candida detox or candida die-off. Now, people have leaky gut because they've got massive amounts of yeast overgrowth in their digestive tracts. That's natural. It happens because of medications, high processed foods, all of that stuff. But this is actually referred to as the healing crisis. So I want you to understand, because those two words don't often go together. But what we're talking about when we mention detox is a healing crisis. And so you've got to help your people get a sense of buy-in and ownership over their own symptoms. So you're going to help prepare them by saying, listen, there is a chance that you're going to feel yucky. It's hopefully not going to last for a long time. For me, it was a matter of maybe 3 to 4 days of a mild headache. I had some brain fog. Obviously, I had some diarrhea. There's a whole slew of symptoms that they can be on the lookout for. But again, when I'm trying to not scare someone, I say, listen, I want to track with you for your first week. I want to talk to you daily. I want to know how you're doing. Rachel's going to talk in just a minute about onboarding. But when you mention the healing crisis, let them know that these negative symptoms, that doesn't mean something's wrong. It means something's right. And guys, you need to know that detox really can last anywhere from several days to like 6 weeks. I have someone right now who is young, on the outside appears truly healthy, just graduated from college, but has such severe candida that has also affected her hormones. She also has PCOS. And these two things together, it's taking a long time for her to detox. But like we had this conversation at the beginning, we have it every week. And what we're looking for are small improvements so that people can tangibly track their symptoms and see, okay, as we've tweaked this program, I am trending towards feeling better. Okay, and on that note, I want to pass it over to Rach because she's got some great ideas on what detox is and what it isn't and how you really can onboard people.
Thanks, Beck. Okay, so as Becky mentioned, the Herxheimer, or we call it herxing, is a term that you may hear people say, but it's a way to refer to detoxing. And a couple of things that I want to mention when you talk about detox, for our specific purposes, we are talking about a bowel detox. We're not talking about our products detoxing the liver or detoxing the kidney, or, you know, doing the pictures I've seen on the internet of people that go and like put their feet in some machine and it, you know, sucks gunk out of the bottom of your feet or anything like that. We are talking specifically about our products focusing and being targeted toward detoxing your bowels. And the reason I want to give you guys a reminder of why that's so important, Becky already mentioned Candida in particular, and it, you know, Candida, if you're not familiar with it, it is a fungus. It also is a very pesky fungus. It causes a myriad of health issues, which is one of the reasons that pinpointing, it's one of the reasons that we can say, yes, your body is going through detox, but those symptoms can literally run the gamut of everything from skin rashes to body aches and pains, etc. Because if you know, your body's primary source of eliminating things that do not serve it well, that are not good for it, that need to get out of the body quickly, are the bowels. And it's one of the reasons that when Plexus was created, when they formulated it, they took a really powerful probiotic. And you have to remember that when we are referring to Probio 5, we are not talking about like a vital biome probiotic. Vital biome is a colonizing high CFU, that's colonizing forming unit for those of you who may be new to it. Probio 5 is like, it's the weed out. It's the we always use that weed feed seed analogy, but it's literally going to go in and its job is to clean out the bad stuff. And yes, it has fantastic probiotic blends in it, but what makes it a powerhouse is the combination of the enzymes that are in it, which are protease and amylase. It's one of the reasons that we specifically tell people take it at night on an empty stomach. Just know if they mention they're having trouble sleeping or they're dealing with nighttime anxiety, that's a form of detox, and we can do some things to troubleshoot that, like move it towards the morning for a period of time. My mom actually experienced that as one of her forms of detoxing. But it's good that it does that, because it would never make any sense in practical terms that you would go and it's springtime and of course you want to plant beautiful flowers in your garden. It would never make sense that you would leave all of the dead plants and the trash and the old mulch and the things that have gathered over the winter. So it's really important that we have that powerful combination of antifungals, enzymes, and probiotics to get rid of all of that bad stuff. But it's also really important that your bowels are moving and that they're functioning properly. And this goes back to onboarding, as Becky mentioned, having conversations with your people before or the day of the products arriving, so that they are not simply relying on what the back of the products say, which is you can take between 1 and 4. Becky and I can tell you that People who start with one oftentimes don't see benefits from the things that they wanted to see benefit from because it wasn't enough. But if you are a little eager, like Miss Becky was, and you start with 4, you may end up with a code brown in the shower. So we don't want that experience either. We strongly, strongly recommend that most people start off with 2 ProBio 5, but that they do not start with their ProBio 5 until you have had a conversation with them that they are having at least 1 bowel movement a day. Now, 1 is not ideal. Ideally, we want to work them up to 2 to 3 bowel movements per day. We also don't want them to feel like they can't leave their house because they are taking so much stuff that they are scared to leave because they're, bound to the porcelain throne, so to speak. So these are just good conversations to have. And, they're funny icebreakers. I love the way that Becky described it. And those are great icebreakers for you to have. Some of us know the people who come to us really well. So these aren't difficult conversations to have. Others of us have been raised in the deep South by very prim and proper mothers who would never, ever, ever want us to have a conversation with anybody about something as gauche as bowel movements. But sorry, this is the business that you signed up for. So let's talk a little bit for a minute about what are some symptoms of a healing crisis. So common things to prepare people for are they may have body aches and pains. Just remember, we're also in the middle of a pandemic and flu season. So if things like fever and vomiting are accompanying that, aches and pains normal, fever and vomiting not normal. One is a sign of detox. The other is, maybe you want to go see the doctor. Having a headache. This is not like a migraine type headache. This is just a dull, kind of can't get rid of it, took some Advil, just kind of an unpleasant headache, but not enough to put you in bed where you have to have the lights off or anything like that. Fatigue is very common. It's very normal for somebody to just feel what sometimes doctors refer to as like a general sense of malaise. Just, I feel a little bit more run down. I feel a little bit more tired, which can be frustrating for people who joined because they wanted energy to instead feel more tired in the beginning. But, oftentimes the people that come to us, they may come to us because they want weight loss, and they may even think this is a quick weight loss solution. Again, these are good conversations to have with people that our products are designed to address the root causes. Why have you gained weight? Well, is it because you have been craving sugar and carbs? Well, cravings for sugar and carbohydrates are not driven by just I like salty foods or I love to eat bread. Those cravings actually come from the gut. So if they are experiencing, even an increase in those cravings in the beginning, it is a sign that die-off is happening in their gut because that bad bacteria, that candida that we just mentioned, it's literally starving. It's starving for the fuel that it needs to survive. And so you are going to crave things that are not good for you when you're experiencing die-off or you're experiencing detox, because the bad guys essentially are trying to figure out a way to hang around and survive. Sweating, flushing, and actually I think when you sweat, embrace it, because sweat is one of the most powerful ways that your body has to get rid of toxins. So this is where we would recommend something like a detox bath, which is running either a hot bath and adding Epsom salt to it. Epsom salt actually helps to draw out and extract toxins through the skin. But it does it in a way that is less hard, for lack of a better term, on the body. Detox baths are excellent for I mean, really anybody, for kids, I take detox baths on a regular basis. I know that Becky and her husband do as well. I actually have a membership at a place that has infrared saunas, and I go and I do that because I know that sweating is a powerful way. And actually, a lot of times you'll talk to people. That's another good conversation to ask people. People who don't sweat, or they're like, oh, like I hardly ever break a sweat. That's a sign that their body probably doesn't have great pathways for detoxing. And so recommending something like a detox bath when they start these products is actually a really good thing. Experiencing like some nausea, again, not vomiting, not anything like that, but just feeling kind of like that, oh, I just looked at that food, and even though I want to eat it, it doesn't necessarily, like the thought of eating it makes me sick. And as Becky mentioned before, diarrhea, because going back to what I started with, this is, well, for our purposes, when we're talking about the body detoxing, we're talking about the bowels detoxing. We're talking about emptying out and getting rid of all of the bad stuff and the nastiness. So how do you want to start somebody out? If you haven't had a chance to listen to the call that I did on Monday about, I talked about an onboarding process, and I want to, I'm going to refer back to that, but if you didn't watch it, I would encourage you to go back and watch it, because essentially what it's going to be is that you are going to, when you sign somebody up, whether they're a customer, whether they're a wholesale customer, or whether they're actually a team builder, you're going to have conversations with them. You're going to want to kind of do an intake form or an intake conversation with them where you set goals and you set expectations. And that's a great opportunity for you to then say, you know, when your products get here, I'm going to tell you how specifically to take them, but I want to prepare you in advance for something called detoxing or something called die off. You can really use those terms interchangeably. And you want to let them know, hey, these products, they are plant-based, but because they're plant-based, they actually are really powerful. Because they're plant-based, we know that they come from food-derived sources, and food in and of itself, when natural, non-GMO, the very thing that we have, foods are designed to heal. They have very powerful effects on the body. So let them know. I mean, Becky and I have often said we get excited when we get the text from somebody that's like, oh, I think I'm going through detox. And I'm like, oh, okay, tell me more. Tell me what's happening. You know, right now the company has done something really fabulous with these triplex boxes that come with a first order, and as of right now, at least every triplex order thereafter. And it's got a great getting started guide in it. That getting started guide is not an excuse for you to not have a conversation with whomever ordered from you about how to get started. Because as I stated, it'll say you can take between 1 and 4 ProBio 5 and 1 and 4, it would be two times a day is the recommendation on BioCleanse. Becky and I can both attest to the fact that BioCleanse can be a very tricky product for people to find their quote unquote sweet spot or happy spot on. The goal is work up to where they're having regular daily bowel movements. And when they find that place of symptom relief, they're going to have what we call non-scale victories as well. Not only are they going to be going to the bathroom regularly, many people will experience less anxiety because of the magnesium. They will experience less like cramping in their legs at nighttime, or Charlie horses or restless leg, just because magnesium, especially at bedtime, has just a wide variety of benefits. But you're going to have to help them dial in. You're always going to have people. It's the nature of just some people to like, oh, well, if it says 2 is good, then I bet 4 is better. Or if it says 4 is fantastic, then I bet 6 is even greater. Less is not necessarily, or more is sometimes less in these cases. So especially for the first month that you have somebody on the products, anticipate doing some hand holding. Make yourself available to them. The thing is that, and I mentioned this on the call earlier this week, that my Plexus partner is somebody that I've been partnered with at corporate, is actually our owner and CEO, Tarl Robinson. And having conversations with him has been very enlightening, because he's given me a lot of metrics and data and things like that I probably would have never had access to before. But when he's talked to me about customer returns, the vast majority of our customer returns happen from people who never even started the products. They ordered them, they sat on their counter for 2 or 3 weeks, and nobody ever got with them and told them how to use the products or how to take them. And so they just never started. And that's just such a missed opportunity. And then, as Becky mentioned, we know personally through our own anecdotal data, through conversations with people, that there's a lot of people that quit because they, say, well, I tried it and it didn't work for me. And you start diving in deeper on those conversations and you realize they only ever took one ProBio 5. Y'all, I would recommend one ProBio 5 for a kid, and that's about it for a child.
And Rach, I just want to jump in really quick right here, because this is something I took a note to myself. Rach and I have both talked with corporate about this. Currently, the ProBio 5 bottle label says take 1 capsule up to, Rach mentioned it a minute ago, I think. It clearly says you can take more, but you guys know, your black and white thinkers see where it says take 1 capsule. I completely agree with Rachel. My 2-year-old took 1 capsule. My young children took 1 capsule when they were on ProBio 5. I take 2 to 3, depending on what's going on. And I would bet that the vast majority of you take at least 2. Some of you might take more, especially if you're recovering from something. So I cannot tell you how many people change their order or cancel their order because they've only been taking 1 ProBio 5 for a month, because some of us as sponsors might think that they're naturally taking 2, not unless you direct them. So that's just something to be dialed in on. Sorry, Rach, wanted to bring
No, that was great. I'm glad you jumped in. So yeah, making sure that you let them know, look, I know that the instructions say 1 to 4. That's because we know that there are people of a wide variety of ages that use our group. If you plan on having your children take it, I would recommend them taking 1. But for you getting started, I would like for you to start with 2, stay there for a week. Let's see how you do. And just know that we may very likely move you up to 3, and then prepare them that as you move them up 3, if they didn't have much detox, if they didn't have much results, if they just are like, I'm not noticing anything on 2, that's a good indicator to you that they may need to move up to 3. As Becky mentioned, it's not like we're looking for people to feel bad. We don't want that. But what we want for people to notice is that they feel something different, that they feel a shift. If you have somebody who is taking it at nighttime, and like I mentioned, my mom, she had like bad dreams and racing thoughts. And, I also talked to my mom today, and she told me she started with 4. Like, she jumped in right out of the gate and went for 4. I told you there are overachievers among us. And so we had to drop her to 2, and we moved 2 of them to the morning, and she took it on an empty stomach. And I want to point out, I didn't say this a few minutes ago, I want to say it now. The reason that we recommend that people take them at night on an empty stomach is that what makes ProBio 5 so dynamic is that it does contain enzymes. They're actually proteolytic enzymes that help to break down this sort of like filmy protective layer that is over the candida. But if taken with food, those enzymes, instead of doing the job of getting rid of the bad gunk in the gut, if you were to take it with dinner, it would actually help you digest your food. And while that can be a great thing, for our purposes, that's not what we're aiming for. What we're aiming for is that good gut clean out. So I think that about covers everything. If you've got a question about troubleshooting that you want to, put in the chat real quick, but we are right at our 30-minute time. So if there's something that we didn't cover that you were hoping that we would, let us know real quick.
Let me say just one really quick thing too, guys. Because Rachel and I have experienced death by detox questions in Plexus. I cannot tell you how many times we get tagged in people's posts. We are actually not the detox gurus, but we are troubleshooters. We spent the first 2 years in our business just going and learning as much as we could about this stuff. So I would just tell you, it's okay to not have the perfect answer for someone. You are not someone's doctor. You are not their health coach. You are the person that acquainted them with the products, and you are their sponsor, but you can tell people, I don't know. Yeah. Let's investigate this together, you know? And I want you to stop feeling responsible for another person's health. You're just not that powerful, because I think that's what keeps people from confidently troubleshooting with someone. The biggest news I can tell you about troubleshooting is don't be afraid of their bad symptoms, and tell them, you can tell me if you're having symptoms that bother you. I want to know. That would be natural.
Yeah. So we had a couple of questions I want to jump to real quick. One was, what if they are taking 4 BioCleanse a day and ProBio 5 and they're still not going to the bathroom? So the interesting thing about magnesium is that magnesium can, at the right dose, it can get the bowels moving. If you're taking too much, it can also be constipating. So figuring out the ratio between the ProBio 5, typically if I run into this situation where we have up to 4, 5, maybe even 6 BioCleanse and we still are not having the bowels moving, I will actually drop them back to 2 and introduce a ProBio 5 at that point, because there is a specific strain of probiotic in ProBio 5 that actually helps with bowel motility. That means getting the bowels moving. And so that would be the case where I would think it might be okay to go ahead and introduce ProBio 5 at that point, but also doing things like detox baths, because you're adding Epsom salt and that has magnesium in it. That's another way to get magnesium into the system without overloading the bowels. And then, okay, so let's talk about skin real quick. If the body is not used to getting rid of toxins through the bowels, the second place that it will choose to go through is the skin. So skin issues, whether hives, rashes, psoriasis, that is an outward manifestation of internal inflammation. And Becky talked about mucus at the beginning. And I know we think of mucus as like a bad thing when we're like, oh, too much mucus, I've got a sinus infection or whatever. You need a good mucosal layer in the bowels. And if they are too inflamed, maybe this is somebody that has Crohn's or IBS or something like that, ulcerative colitis. This is where, again, this is a good intake question. Adding something like ease in at the beginning of their regimen to bring inflammation down quickly will help them with both the things that are going on with their skin on the outside. But y'all, it is not uncommon at all for people. I mean, it's one of the reasons that you commonly see people develop a rash from things like antibiotics or a rash while they're sick. It's because the body has got to figure out a way to get it out. And if it cannot do it through the bowels, it will do it through the skin. And then the last one that I'll address real quickly is, I believe it was Christy that asked about Alka-Seltzer Gold. So Alka-Seltzer Gold is something that has been kind of popularized within the Lyme community, or people who deal with mold toxicity. That is on the extreme of the spectrum that we are talking about. For my average person who's just experiencing normal detox symptoms, Alka-Seltzer Gold is not something, one, it's really hard to find. It is not something you can go to CVS or Walgreens and find typically. And so that I think would be on a case-by-case situation. And if you know that that person is struggling with, some greater health issue on top of just what your average person comes to you for. Would you add anything to that, Becky?
I would just simply say that that's where I really think milk thistle is easier to get your hands on. And I agree with Rach. It's really hard to find Alka-Seltzer Gold. And when it comes to that specific, the limeys, they say it's got to be the Alka-Seltzer Gold to help your body detox. If you can find it, that's one thing. But milk thistle can sometimes be way more readily accessible, easier to find. And it does help the body process that stuff. It's specifically helpful with your liver. But like Rach is talking about, we really are dealing with the bowels. So if someone is overloaded with detox symptoms, then milk thistle can be a great help.
Yeah. All right.
I know there's a lot of questions, guys. You can always ask them on the table, and Rachel will post the recording later. But we really appreciate y'all for hopping on tonight. Rach, thank you as well for your vast knowledge. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening.